You guys are in for a treat today. I mean, all of our authors are amazing. You all know that by now, but there's really something very special about this particular author. And so I'm super excited that I'm going to get the chance to really hopefully unpack a little bit about what she's written about and why it's so very important to write a book like this. With all of my years of experience, you get a little arrogant and think you've done everything. And then somebody comes along with a book idea or a concept or what have you that revolutionizes your business and changes your mindset and sort of smacks you back down to size and lets you know that you've not seen it all. There's still so much out there to be discovered, and innovators and thought leaders like my guest today, Mandy Crosby. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Angie. What an introduction and what a compliment coming from you and your experience and how grateful I have been to work and learn so much from you. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've had a blast together. You're a relatively new author in this space, and yet you really seem to come with a lot of just what I call ingenuity, just kind of a natural understanding of things that needed to be done. And so it's really been very fun for me to work on this project with you. So first of all, the name of the book, let's start with that, is Extraordinary Ordinary Women. But of course, you've already seen that because that's why you clicked on this YouTube video. But I want to Mandy, I want to get you to explain how you came up with that phrase. It's so unique.
Thank you, Angie. Yes, happy to share. So, I am a recent empty nester and, doing a lot of reflection on my life as a woman in her 40s now, thinking back just on my life's journey as we often do during that time in life.
Right.
And I really started thinking, right, yes, and we've related on that so much, and thinking about all of the women that really shaped who I am today, right? And just sitting in gratitude and thinking about, I always have this image that I feel like of my mom. She is, a woman that you would, maybe pass by and wave to in a store, on a Saturday and not really think too much more than that. And I was just thinking how extraordinary she was, right? And my grandmother and my mentors and my daughter and all the women in my life, and how sometimes we all just feel very ordinary in what we do when we're pouring into our kids and our colleagues and our friends and our loved ones. And I started really thinking that's where the extraordinary nature is, though. That is what an extraordinary life is. It is all of these what we call, quote, ordinary women in our lives. When you see famous people giving big speeches, we're always thanking some woman in our life, our mom or our aunt who poured into us. And so it really just came to me. I wanted women to really resonate with that. Just because we feel ordinary, that is in fact extraordinary. So Extraordinary Ordinary Women was born.
So what's really great is I remember years and years ago hearing a football player. It was actually a comedian talking about the football player, and he said, the dad takes the kid out and plays football with them and rolls around in the grass and gets dirty, and the dad signs him up for pee-wee football and goes to all of his games and sits beside him for the NFL draft. And then when he gets to be a superstar in the NFL, he gives his first interview, and the first thing he says is, "Thanks, mom."
That's right. That's
It's
right.
true. I mean, we love dads. We love our husbands and our sons and our brothers and uncles and grandpas. They're all wonderful and critical in our lives. But these extraordinary, ordinary women who touch us as women in very particular, unique ways, I think needs to be celebrated, and celebrated in much the way you have in this book. I
Mhm.
mean, you literally walk through your life story. I mean, it blows my mind. The book's done, right? And I'm still in awe of it. But you walk through your life from birth all the way through to your incredible success, which we'll get to in a moment. And you talk about every woman or many of the women who have had an impact on your life and who have touched you in some remarkable way, and their encouragement, their willingness to fight for you, never give up on you, and how that has been really the key to your success. And what I think I find most interesting about the book is that you didn't always listen to the advice you were being given
Yes.
by some of these extraordinary, ordinary women. Talk to us about how that shakes down, because still they had an impact, even though you didn't always do what they were suggesting you do.
Yes, Angie, and I think this really is one of my core messages in the book and just in life as a mentor is that I just had a conversation the other day about this with a colleague of mine. We still have to plant the seeds with these young women and women who may not be necessarily ready to have it watered or grow yet. Because of my example, right? So I tell a couple stories in the book of I was young, in my late teens. I was making a decision to leave college, get a vocational degree, and get to work, right? It just wasn't for me. I was done with it. And I had women who were planting seeds along the way, who had some hard conversations with me, who shared hard truths and said, hey, listen, you might want to reconsider that. Like this is it seems like a fast win, but it's going to be a longer path, and just consider that. And I took it, under advisement and did what I wanted to anyway at the time, right? As we most do in our late teens, early 20s, we know everything. And I certainly thought I did. And so the message is though that seed stayed with me even if I didn't make the decision at that time, if I still chose my own path and made a different way. In my 40s, as I'm reflecting, I remember that conversation when I was making decisions to return to school and take chances and bet on myself. I was remembering those seeds. It was other women later that would come along to water them, but they were planted. And so I never want a young woman who you may feel like, oh my gosh, like she is not really making the best decision, who may be in your life, to be discounted or to not have at least that hard conversation or that seed to be planted. Because like you said, Angie, I certainly didn't listen. Those seeds were just there. They were not growing at all for a while. As I was forging my own path and learning some of those lessons, right? So I love that question right away because it was such a pivotal point for me, and those seeds, mattered later.
Yeah, and it really took a lot of faith and commitment and dedication on their part to really walk the walk with you, even though they weren't seeing instant results. It's not like you encourage someone or mentor someone and then magically they
It's true.
are, this super successful person. I mean, people may be looking at you right now and see someone who is super successful, very polished, they don't know the real difficulties that you experienced. I mean, this book is raw. It goes into some really tough times in your
Right.
life where it didn't look like you were going to rise. It didn't look like you were going to be successful in your life, and yet people continue, these extraordinary ordinary women continue to say, I see something. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know what she's going to be, but I see something and I want to be a part of that. How have they reacted to the book when the book was published and you were able to share it with them? Just share with me
Yes.
how that has to have been amazing for
It
them.
was so great, Angie. It really was. And I'm actually happy to share this with you because we have the holidays haven't been able to connect. So this is a beautiful conversation. I'm so happy to share this. It was amazing to share with a lot of these women how much they impacted my life, because to point out how ordinary we are in our own minds of like they were shocked, some of them. They were like, really? Like they had no idea that their kind words or their encouragement, what decisions that they made. There's some parts in the book I talk about how some women left doors open for me, right? They saw something in me. They knew that they wanted me to have chances down the road. There was some faith there as, mothers and mentors, that they saw that and decided not to close the door for me. They were making these decisions, for me, a future self that I wasn't ready to see yet. And so it was incredible to share that and to see how they felt re inspired. One of the women told me, you know what? I had no idea what an impact that was. And I really want to figure out ways I can continue to reach out to other women, to young women, to women that are coming up to mentor, because I really didn't have a clue, how much that meant to you. And so that is part of the call to action, is let's say it out loud to each other, right? Let's celebrate the women who have done things in our lives for us. And it might feel small to them or just something they do every day. And really, it's an extraordinary act of compassion and love and unconditional leadership for those around us. So yeah, that has been one of the best treasures, is sharing the stories with the women who were just blown away that how much
Yeah.
it mattered.
Yeah, and so many of them took chances. They really took a lot of chances in doing what they did, and yet they saw something. And so I want to talk about that something. And I wonder if you have had a chance to glean this from these extraordinary, ordinary women that you talk about, or if it's occurred even in your own life. But for so many of us, we see people who are in a state of, let's just call it a lack of readiness to really
Yeah, yeah,
step into, that's the nice term for it, or like a complete mess in many cases. They're just
yes,
not ready, right? I was one of those women. You were one of those women. Um,
yes.
and yet it's the something that they see that makes them invest. And they're not investing for any personal return. They're not going to gain anything really. I mean, some of them ended up working with you, which turned out to be a tremendous gift, but they want to invest because they just think the return's going to come to you and they want to see that happen. How do we, as the one woman said to you, how do we invest more? How do we open our eyes to that special something that someone might have that doesn't appear, readily visible to us?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. For me, it starts with removing judgment. That's something we all can work on, because it's a critical eye that we have right away, right? Especially as women in leadership positions, we're actually called to do just that sometimes, right? Is kind of judge our employees, are you performing? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Being able to really remove a judgment lens and looking at somebody holistically as a human is what really, really helps us see. And I think what a lot of women that poured into me were able to see in me, despite me being rough around the edges and sort of, like you said, the not readiness. I love that, Angie. I'm going to take that and use it for sure. We all can be in a state of that, right? But what they were able to see, what I believe too, is a lot of things in their selves, in their younger self. So let's not forget as we move forward. Let's not kind of have this, as my grandmother would say, too big for our britches mentality, right? Where we never get to that point. Let's never get there. Let's always have this lens of humility and love and compassion. And yes, sometimes we're going to see a young woman, and again, in a career situation, maybe we're going to have to make a hard decision. We're going to have to let them go or whatever it might be. But let's lead with compassion first. Think about everything that must have gone on in that person's life for them to be showing up the way they are today, behaving the way they are today, and look at what the good things they are bringing to the table, because that's really what I believe a lot of these women were able to see in me. Despite the mistakes and the missteps and the things that I share, they were able to see that I had a lot of love that I brought to the table, and I was compassionate about other people, and I've always had really a passion for those around me. So they were able to see that there was kindness and good and love, despite, some of my actions or the way that I was making decisions at the time. And so another call to action for us, and Angie, to answer that question, is for us to look at people with the lens of compassion, all people that we interact with, especially the women in our lives, because there's usually a reason why that they're showing up the way they are, especially our younger selves, right?
That's
So
so
yeah,
true. It's so
yeah.
true. All right. So in a minute, I'm going to ask how people can get in touch with you, but I would love for you to share with people where you are today. Because we've talked about the really difficult places that you had to navigate in your childhood and in your early adulthood, but that's a far cry from where you are today. So if you could just share with folks what you're doing today. And in particular, I'm curious how you made the leap from the medical field into this technology side of the medical field. I mean, you talk about it
Yes.
in the book, but why you were even like open to that, not having a lot of background in that. field.
Yes, yes, happy to share that. So yes, in the book, and folks will get a more intimate look, like you said, at sort of my early journeys with, early childhood traumas and different struggles with my parents and the different things they brought to the table. So of course, in my younger years, I was carrying a lot of unworthiness, feelings that I wasn't worthy. I think a lot of us struggle with the why under the why. So when my daughter was born, I really had this lens of, I need to get it. Like, how can I make changes? Because she deserved better. Even
Mm.
at the time when I feel like I didn't deserve it yet, Angie, I knew that she did. So when I started working and I was working clinically as a medical assistant, I was going to do anything to raise my hand and to take a chance to show her that there was other ways. I explain in the book there's a manager who believed in me, who believed that I could be a builder of all things, right? In tech and computer systems. I never thought I would build software. And when somebody said, "Hey, you're already an analyst, like you really get this stuff, you can do it," I thought, I'm going to do it for her, right? I'm going to take that chance for her to show her that you can do anything. And I bet on myself. And that was the very first time I did that. So when that door opened and I realized that when I continued to bet on myself, I kept winning. I kept moving up, and my compassion for others and my emotional intelligence for that piece of the pie really affected my tech career as well. Because at the end of the day, the technology in healthcare is supporting our doctors who support our patients. And that was always a passion that I had. So as I grew and became a project manager and a supervisor and a lead and director and all of the wonderful things, and now I have experience with a tech startup, and all of the ways that I know my skills are now transferable. As I was growing, Angie, I really learned that I was also worthy the whole time. I knew that my daughter was worthy, and I was trying to prove it for her. And I ended up showing myself, like, you know what, kid? That little girl, she always mattered. She always mattered. She was always worthy of going after all of the dreams and all of the successes. And so now what's beautiful about that is I can sit comfortably at any table, Angie. I feel confident where I am today because of where I've come from. And I will never forget that. And I bring that with me. So having this amazing career, still being in healthcare, being in IT, I'm a mentor for the state of Michigan for women in healthcare because I continue to take that passion forward. So it's exciting. And like you said, some folks will look at me today. I was in front of eighth graders and they're so funny and honest and asking you questions. And, someone was like, "Hey, did you get rich? How did you get wealthy?" And I said, "Oh, is it giving rich?" Like teasing them back. But really, it's the journey that has brought me here, right, to this. And when I think of success, it's because I found that worthiness, that I was always worth it. And so is everyone that's listening to this conversation that will read this book. That's where it starts.
So fascinating. I hope everyone caught what you just said because I'm blown away by it. So many of us use our past as the excuse for not betting on ourselves, or we use that, we allow that to hold us back or to tell us that we're not good enough and we can't do it. You actually used your past as a springboard and basically said, based on everything I've been through, I'm going to bet on myself. If there's a
Gonna do
chance,
it.
I'm going to raise my hand. If there's an opportunity, I'm going to jump right in. I mean, that is a mindset shift that I think would be revolutionary if most women, heard that, understood that, and seized on that. How would that change a person's life? I can only imagine because I hear the opposite probably 99% of the time.
That's right. That's right, Angie. It's just on the other side of that fear. You are worthy right now, today, whatever decision that someone might be hesitating, use my book as an example, as a catalyst, as a key to open that door. One of my favorite sayings is small hinges swing big doors. Our micro changes make macro impact. And so I want everyone to think about that. It's the small, thing to say, "Hey, I'll try that. Yes, let me do it. I feel confident enough. Sure, put me in the game, coach. Don't be afraid to do it. Like, make that chance. So if there's anything you're hesitating on, like you said, a lot of times we feel so unworthy and we're just not. It's that mindset shift. You can absolutely do it.
So amazing. I'll never forget being a little girl watching my grandfather seed a patch of barren ground, and it had been barren forever, just clumpy and rocky and, not pleasant to walk on, even with shoes, certainly not barefoot. And I saw him go out there and, till that little patch. Just it was just a little patch on the side of the house just to make it pretty. He thought he would grow some grass. And I remember as a little girl laughing and thinking, grass, how could grass grow there? And I just sat there watching him. And then he just sprinkled this stuff on there and he watered it. And he said, okay, that's it. And I'm like,
That's it.
that's never going to be anything. So he's always losing his mind. That's what it is. That's what it is. And it turned out that to be one of the greatest lessons I've ever learned, when just within a week you could see the little buds starting to pop up, and then within 2 weeks it was filled in, and in a month it was worthy of running through in your bare feet. So I love what your book teaches. It teaches that there's gold in every single one of us, that we are extraordinary as we stand today, even with all of our issues and flaws. We are extraordinary, and then we have an obligation to sort of, stir up that gift that's in someone else and massage them into greatness, even if it's just a step forward. I love that all of these women took a small role, in your life, but combined, it helped to shape the woman that you are today. So thank you for this book. It is amazing. It's one of the most fun projects I've ever done in my career. I had a blast with it, and we're praying for millions and millions of sales.
Thank you so much, Angie. I really appreciate you and all of the work that you have done. What you have brought to me and my life and experience has just been a blessing. So feeling is totally mutual. Thank you so much for everything that you have poured into me. Extraordinary, ordinary woman, Angie, everybody, for sure.
I didn't make it in the book, but I got in there on the end. Thank you guys so much. Listen, the book is available everywhere, wherever you want to buy your book. It's available in every form, so you can get it in print, in ebook, in audiobook. It is available, so get your copy. I promise you will not be disappointed. And what I would say is share it with other people. If you have a book club, it's a great book club book. Would be perfect for any book club or women's group or anything like that, or share it with, with a teenage daughter. It's just a great book both to read and to give. So Mandy, how can people reach you if they would like to invite you to come and spread more of your magic where they are?
Yes, thank you. So my primary way of getting a hold of me right now is through LinkedIn. So you can find me at Mandy Crosby. If you type in Mandy Crosby, Extraordinary Ordinary Women, or Mandy Crosby Author, you'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll see my face. You can also email me at crosbymandy12@gmail.com right now. I do want to let everybody know that I am in the midst of standing up my website and a bunch of other exciting activities that I'll have for keynote speaking and mentorship programs that are becoming the spring of this year. So I'm really excited about that. So yes, if you want to connect, find me on LinkedIn, send me an email, and I'll be happy to connect with you.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Mandy Crosby, Extraordinary Ordinary Women. You guys drop a comment in the chat. Communicate with us. Let's make this a two-way conversation. And if you have questions for Mandy, I didn't ask her permission for this, but I would bet if you drop that in the comments, I could reach out to her with your questions and share her responses with you all. So please, 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 let's spread the love. Let's spread the goodness. Let's spread the inspiration. You've been blessed by many extraordinary, ordinary women. So now it's your chance to also be a blessing. So thanks, Mandy. And
thanks,
we'll
Angie.
talk to you guys soon.
Yes, thanks, everyone.